with the very sacred fire that Prince Aeneas, against all odds, had carried from the burning city of Troy to the region of Latium on the Italian peninsula, with which he founded the city of Livirium. His son Ascanius founded the city of Alba Longa, and another of his descendants, the twins Romulus and Remus, around 753 BC, founded the city of Rome. Rome became a prosperous city where, during the reign of King Lucius Tarquinius Priscus, Breezy and his collaborators commissioned the construction of an Etruscan palace, complete with a large gymnasium and surrounded by colorful gardens, which would later become known as the Academy of Rome. The palace was located next to the circular temple of Vesta, the house of the Vestal Virgins, and the Regia, the residence of the kings of Rome, built during the reign of Numa Pompilius, the second king of Rome. These structures would become part of the nascent Roman Forum. In the circular temple of Vesta, goddess of the hearth and family and symbol of fidelity, the Vestal Virgins served as priestesses tending the sacred fire. When Breezy visited the bustling temple, she was warmly acclaimed by the Vestals, for, as a virgin, the divine child had been entrusted with transporting the sacred fire from Olympus to King Dardanus, son of Zeus and the Pleiades Electra, with whom he founded the legendary city of Dardania. Later, after the death of King Dardanus, the kingdom passed to his grandson Tros, who named his lands Trode and his people Troy or Trojans. Illo, Tros's son, under the same influence of the sacred fire, founded the city of Ilion, which would also be known as Troy. Located at the entrance to the strategic Dardanelles Strait, the thriving city of Troy experienced great maritime and economic development, surrounded by impregnable walls for its protection. Breezy, accompanied by her inseparable pets, the scarab beetle Kepri and the protective cat Cyprus, as well as the titan Prometheus on her right, visited the prosperous city of Troy with some regularity. They would stroll through the central plaza, marked by leafy trees and rustic sculptures of the gods. In its center stood a circular stone tower, crowned by an ornate iron bowl where the sacred fire burned. From the plaza, one could see the bustling seaport at the entrance to the Dardanelles Strait. Thanks to the marvelous dropperfly Teucer the Phrygian, Breezy had become acquainted with some of the most illustrious Trojans, such as Aeneas, son of the goddess Aphrodite, and the Trojan prince Anchises, who had been marked by the Moirai, the infallible goddesses of fate. Furthermore, Aeneas had been among the select young men educated by the centaur Chiron, Breezy's unforgettable tutor. At the end of the disastrous Trojan War, Breezy received, through one of the anemoi, the desperate plea of Aeneas, who commanded a fleet of 20 ships after abandoning the burning city of Troy, accompanied by his aging father and his son Ascanius. He was joined by hardened soldiers and some women who, in search of a new home, sailed the perilous waters of the Mediterranean Sea. Breezy, accompanied by her protective cat Cyprus, arrives on the deck of the ship captained by Aeneas. After brief greetings, he takes her to his cabin, where he shows her the sacred objects, including the Palladium, as well as a concave stone vessel where the dying sacred fire is on the verge of extinction, as there are no women among his crew who have remained chaste. Without wasting any time, Breezy approaches the stone bowl and begins to feed the dark embers of charcoal, which soon begin to glow reddish, bringing the sacred fire back to life. Breezy, who performs various tasks around the world, lets fate take its course for the Trojan refugees, but she continues to travel back and forth to the deck of Aeneas's ship to tend the fire. In this way, Breezy will witness the arrival of the decimated Trojan fleet in Carthage, as well as the tragic romance between Aeneas and Dido, the exotic queen of Tyre, who turned out to be a fervent admirer of Hecate. Breezy will also witness Aeneas's arrival on the shores of Latium, ruled by King Latinus, where, after several setbacks, he marries the king's daughter. Breezy will be present at the wedding, as well as at the founding of the city of Livirium, where the sacred fire burned in a circular stone tower crowned by an ornate iron bowl. As the years pass, Breezy will keep abreast of events concerning the sacred fire, visiting the city of Alba Longa with some regularity, where he enjoys the illustrious reign of Aeneas, who will in turn be the founder of a long line of kings. It was in the city of Alba Longa that the Greek goddess Hestia began to be called Vesta, and where the priesthood of the Vestal Virgins began, tasked with maintaining the sacred fire. The girls were chosen at the age of 10, of great beauty and without physical defects, in honor of Breezy and his invaluable help during the historic voyage. Even at this time, the Vestal Virgins were depicted with a veil on their heads, carrying a lit lamp in their hands. Later, under the reign of the Honorable Numa, the second king of Rome, the Vestal Virgins, after becoming salaried employees of the public treasury, also became daughters of the state. Since the Vestal Virgins were considered part of the soul of the city, their virginity was supposedly linked to the burning of the sacred fire. If this fire went out for any reason, they could be flogged. But if, by chance, any of them broke their vow of chastity, they faced serious accusations, which could lead to the death penalty. Any sexual relationship with a citizen was considered incest and an act of treason. Otherwise, the Vestal Virgins were revered and respected, possessing countless privileges and rights. To begin with, their person was sacrosanct, and death was the punishment for anyone who inflicted any harm upon them. Their presence was required at all public ceremonies, and they were transported in a comfortable carpentum, a covered two-wheeled chariot drawn by horses and preceded by a lictor, who had the right of way. Because of their incorruptibility, the Vestal Virgins were entrusted with wills and important state documents, and they could own property, make wills, and have the right to vote. Perhaps the greatest power of the Vestals in Roman society was their ability to free prisoners and slaves simply by touching them, and they could also pardon any condemned person if they happened to encounter them on their way to execution. Breezy used this powerful right as soon as he established his new headquarters in the city of Rome and allied himself with the Vestal Virgins to try to help the innocent condemned. Very soon, the Vestal Virgins demonstrated their loyalty to Breezy in his confrontation with King Tarquin the Proud, supplying him with secret information that, with the help of the elderly Sibyl of Cumae and her prophetic Sibylline books, would bring the wicked king to his knees. From that moment onward, the Vestals would be Breezy's allies against the abuses of power by senators, magistrates, and the powerful in general. After the expulsion of Tarquin the Proud, the Roman Republic was founded. The early centuries of the Republic witnessed Rome's progressive conquests of its Latin and Etruscan neighbors, among others. Influenced by the god Ares Mars, patron of Roman warriors, Rome employed the infantry military unit known as the legion as a tool for its conquests. This was accompanied by the construction of the first Roman roads, which allowed for the rapid mobilization of large forces. Roman roads, with their early stone bridges using the arch as their basic structure, were a key element in conquest and expansion. Breezy and his collaborators, thanks to their regular visits to the Etruscan palace they had commissioned in the Roman Forum, as well as the information sent by the marvelous dropperfly Numa the Sabine, kept abreast of what was happening in the prosperous city of Rome. A significant event marking the early stages of the Republic occurred at the beginning of the 4th century BC, when the Roman legions were defeated by the Gallic tribes at the Battle of the Allia, commanded by the audacious Brennus. This bitter defeat was followed by the sack of Rome and the destruction of all its written history. Only a small citadel on the Capitoline Hill escaped capture, where the Vestal Virgins took refuge, protecting the sacred fire. The city's top brass had also taken refuge there, including the marvelous dropperfly Numa the Sabine, from where a humiliating peace was negotiated at a cost of 1,000 pounds of gold. Breezy and the Anemoi, the efficient gods of the wind, would be aware of how the army gradually subdued the inhabitants of the Italian peninsula, including the prosperous Greek colonies of Magna Graecia. As a consequence, the Roman people, in their own way, adopted the Greek gods, absorbing the influence of the Eleusinian mysteries and the worship of Hecate, along with her magical powers. In Rome, Hecate would be known as Trivia, the goddess of three forms. During this period, with the death of the Roman politician and aristocrat Junius Brutus Perea in 246 BC, a descendant of one of the noblest and most ancient Etruscan lineages, and of the founding fathers of the Roman Republic, his famous sons, Decimus and Marcus, both consuls and censors of Rome, introduced the Munera, an ancient Etruscan rite, which consisted of a fight to the death between two gladiators. This was a blood offering in honor of their father's death, as dictated by ancient Etruscan tradition. This custom spread from then on, evolving from a ritual into a spectacle, inspiring unbridled passion among the Roman people. Schools for the training of gladiators, known as ludus, soon began to appear. In the latter half of the 3rd century BC, Breezy and the Anemoi also witnessed Rome's confrontation with Carthage in the first two Punic Wars, conquering Sicily and Iberia. This was the time when Breezy decided to leave the city of Alexandria to settle at the Roman headquarters, and the academy began operating there. Previously, children had been educated by their parents, a practice passed down from generation to generation. The Academy of Rome was very similar to the School of Athens, as Rome adopted the Greek educational system, with the exception of music classes, which the Romans didn't particularly favor. However, the workshops on other art forms were quite popular. There was also a small library that was hardly used, as well as a literary workshop where documents were produced in Greek and Latin, since education was bilingual. Wax tablets with the ever-present stylus were very popular and were made in various sizes and styles. One of the Academy's first public activities, with Breezy and his collaborators at the forefront, was the celebration of the Roman triumph, with the arrival of General Scipio Africanus, after his victory over Hannibal, the famous Carthaginian general, at the Battle of Zama during the end of the Second Punic War.